We're in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, she, her, and hers, and I am the Senior Partnerships Manager here at AllVoices. Today, I am very excited to welcome our next guest onto the interview series, Nicole Sloane. She is an Employee Experience Leader at Kimberly-Clark. Nicole, it's good to see you. Do you want to share a little bit about yourself for our listeners, including your pronouns and when you were younger? Do you remember how exactly you answered the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Okay, well, thanks, Christina. Yeah, so my current role is employee experience leader, as you said. I've been with my company 25 years, so been in a variety of roles, always moving around, learning and growing, or I wouldn't have stayed 25 years. So yeah, so what I wanted to be when I grew up. Um, I grew up with both of my parents being in a science related field. So my mother worked in a hospital laboratory, and my dad was head of the science department at a small university, taught anatomy, physiology, biology, those kind of things. So even dinner time conversation, like tended to, like what happened today at work, was science related. So I thought I was going to go that route. Explored a couple of things, physical therapy, pharmacy school, and I ended up getting my degree in accounting. So really just kind of landed on something that kind of fit more with my personality and what was going to work for me, as well as something I thought was pretty flexible and I could go some different directions with my career, which you can see I did. I'm not in accounting.
Yes, absolutely. Fast forward to today, you're an employee experience leader, and as you said, have been at the company for 25 years as well. A lot of growth and development and helping others grow and develop too, which I think is part of the overarching kind of theme of our interview series. It's in the title as well for this dynamic thing of company culture definitely needs to be nurtured and kind of understood as more people come into the organization, people are moving around. From your perspective, what are qualitative and quantitative ways we can really keep a pulse on what's happening and really measure company culture?
So, from a quantitative perspective, I think there are a number of metrics that, we can look at. We tend to use surveys, onboarding, exit, engagement. Companies do that a lot. There are some common measures, turnover, retention, job mobility, things like that, maybe an employee net promoter score. So I think there are a number of quantitative types of things, and most companies are probably on that track. From a qualitative perspective, maybe a little bit different company to company, I would say. But, hearing stories and feedback from leaders and employees is pretty important. So I think storytelling, people telling their stories, right, and being transparent and sharing that is one way. Engagement with development programs, you can see participation and those kinds of things, and you're seeing engagement and being able to kind of measure that way. Feedback in the flow of work, you've probably heard that kind of thing, but just capturing it in the moment when employees are in a process or doing something, they have some event in their lives, and getting that feedback. And I think just organized employee groups, and hearing from them is always important.
Absolutely. So a variety of ways of kind of collecting those stories, different points of the employee experience as well, asking for feedback. I think a lot of times, especially with large organizations who are continuing to grow too, you have folks in different departments, whether it's day one for someone or year 25 as well. We always get the question around scaling company culture and understanding no matter where you are in the organization that you are part of the one Kimberly-Clark culture. How do you ensure that no matter where employees sit at the company, so I know you both have manufacturing sites and corporate employees, feel like they are under this one kind of umbrella and employer brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing we do is just using a common language around our culture and what we mean by it. So, it's very common for companies to have a purpose, values, ways of working, those kinds of things, but to really integrate that in what we do day to day is really important. So we're all using kind of that common terminology, integrating it into learning and learning about that and how to demonstrate kind of the behaviors and ways of working that we're looking for employees to represent, just how we conduct meetings and, that type of thing, being consistent in the way we use that, same kind of approach around recruiting, for example. So I think, having that common language is important. Another thing, within HR, we've done a lot of work around giving employees what they need. So think about tools, processes, information support, providing it when they need it and, where they can access it and in their local language so that experience is relevant to them. So we've done a lot of work in that space and it's consistent globally, but we are on a journey. So the foundational elements are there, but we're continuing to make improvements as we move forward.
Yeah, I want to talk about a little bit of those improvements as well. Constantly iterating on the employee experience is really important. And you mentioned kind of meeting those specific needs of employees. How are you really demonstrating and meeting the needs of employees in a really personalized way, especially as the company continues to grow?
So from an HR perspective, I'll handle that question from an HR perspective. We're very focused on improving the experience around how we provide for employees, right? So one example of this is giving employees a choice of a support channel. So while I think this has been around for quite some time on the IT side of things, and people are kind of used to that, it's like, well, maybe I can chat, I can pick up the phone, I can do these different things, right, to get support. We're providing that now on the HR side. So, it's a balance of, human interaction and technology, right? But we have searchable content on our portal. We have a chatbot. We have case management. Those kinds of things are available 24/7. So you can put in a ticket, you can chat with a chatbot. But we also have live chat and phone support with our support team, human support team, right? So just kind of depending on a preference or a need, employees can choose their channel for support. So that's one example. Another one would be the work we've done around translation of our content. So articles, information, policies, things that our employees are looking for. We've tried to provide those in 18 languages and then audience that content so that the employees who need access to it, that's what they see, right? And things that aren't relevant to them, they don't see. So I think, having that content available on our portal, having it's also used by our chatbot. It's also used by our support team to answer questions. I think language is just really important. It's a myth to think that English is good enough or a couple of languages are good enough. So if you're operating in different countries or you're global, I see language as a differentiator to support employees.
The language we use is really important and it needs to be intentional, especially for a global organization too, and really thinking about what we mean when we say these specific words for values or how we communicate with each other as well. And it really sends a signal to the folks around you too. I know that on this interview series, I have the pleasure of interviewing folks in human resources, employee experience, culture, talent, but for folks who are not working with these teams on a regular basis, I'm sure you're collaborating with a lot of different folks. Can you share an example of one of those kind of cross-functional projects of what the goal was and what the end result or results were?
Well, one of the most interesting cross-functional projects that I've worked on is our chatbot. So we use Socrates, and that was really a first of a kind type of technology for us and a first of a kind partnership. So when you think about HR technology, certainly we're partnering with IT, right? It's just that just makes sense, right? You have to work with IT for technology, but to think about IT and HR endeavoring to launch a bot together to help support employees with both IT and HR questions and transactions, taking actions and also getting information. That was really an interesting partnership that's been very successful. So through August this year, we've had about 6,000 employees using the chatbot. So definitely, room for increasing adoption, but they've had more than 27,000 questions or transactions through the chatbot this year. We, you know, it's a great example of how we can um, do something together, partner to provide something useful to employees in a cross-functional way. In my experience, employees really don't care who the team is behind the scenes or behind a solution. They just need answers in an accessible way and they want to get back to work. So for us to partner in this way and kind of provide one solution cross-functionally, I think that was a really a great solution, and it is well received. And we definitely want to keep growing adoption in that space.
Yeah, I think it's important to offer those multiple avenues and kind of channels as well for folks to receive those answers, to work in an asynchronous way as well. So I think that's a good example of that project too. And I know it's an underlying tone, and when we're talking about company culture, it's an example of the chatbot as well. But really want to ask directly to what role does the employee voice continue to play in your people, culture, talent, and employee experience strategy, really overall?
Yeah, I mean, there are some things we do to talk to employees directly and get feedback and like on our roadmap of items and involve them in the process. But people really are central to who we are and what we do. Our purpose at the company is to create better care for a better world. So what our employees do every day results in caring for other people. And oh, by the way, our employees are also our customers. We're a consumer products company, so they use our products and they feel directly connected to what we do. So strategically, it's really critical for us to listen, help build capabilities, provide opportunities and challenges to learn and grow in the roles where employees can feel successful in an environment where they can be their best selves. This really requires creating an ecosystem where every team member, every manager is a positive reflection of our culture, which kind of gets back to that common language and everyone kind of moving in the right direction, in the same direction.
Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. And in terms of really understanding how people are feeling throughout their entire time at Kimberly-Clark is really important as well. And we know that especially over the last few years, employees across a variety of organizations have a lot of feedback to give as well, whether it's positive, negative, or constructive, anything in between. And business as usual, because of the pandemic and the changing role of the workplace, has really forced us to consistently iterate and audit processes and continue to innovate, which has been really exciting. I'm also sure that you have many of these as well, but how have you innovated at any part of the employee experience over the past, let's say 2 years?
Yeah, well, a little over 2 years ago, we implemented ServiceNow for HR. So that was a really foundational piece to our HR service delivery model. So we were literally doing this during the pandemic. So between like February and the end of June of 2020. And so in a 5 month time frame, we had this brand new platform, 18 languages, and all of this, kind of laying the foundation. But since that time, we've revisited some of our design, discovered additional needs based on feedback, those kinds of things. It's really goes back to that journey, right? So you implement something, you're not done. You don't kind of like, say, okay, it's behind us now. It's a continuous journey of, tweaking, improving the experience. So we continue to have a list of enhancements and requests coming through that we have to prioritize and just, keep trying to improve that experience.
Absolutely. It's a continuous process. It's never done as well. And looking for that feedback, asking really critical questions. Every part of the process is critical to building that psychological safety too and a best in class place to work. We've talked about a little bit about professional development, company culture, kind of innovation in the workplace. Another reason why folks stay at their company is because they feel connected to their team members and they feel like they're really invested in their professional or personal lives too. How do you create and foster meaningful moments of connection in a kind of hybrid workplace?
I think some of it may just happen naturally, but it feels like now it really requires being intentional about our interactions. So when we're face to face, it takes some planning, and we reserve that for interactions that are meaningful and try to focus our time together. So when we get together, we did that recently where we got together face to face to work on a particular topic, and we just kind of carved out the time, got face to face in a room, and really worked through it, and it made a huge difference. So I think those intentional types of times together, focused time, is important. I also think we're better today about checking on each other and being open about how we're really doing. This allows us to celebrate those little triumphs in life, but also helps us be mindful when someone might need a little more space, right? Leading by sharing our own situation can make it easier for someone else on the team to ask for help or explain why maybe they're not as engaged as they normally are. Something might be going on there. Even I can see in mentoring relationships where there's a little bit of a blend of the personal with the professional. So you kind of, toggle almost between those two things.
Yeah, you continue to build those unique relationships. Leading by example with vulnerability and empathy, especially as leaders, is really a good example of how people can really share their stories as well with people who feel comfortable too. I know we've been talking a lot about kind of your journey and experience at Kimberly-Clark, but I want to ask you some kind of industry specific questions as well. So, of course, without naming names, are there any common mistakes you're seeing companies making in their employee experience strategy?
Yeah, I think on the employee experience journey, every company's in a different place. So, I still sense that some are kind of hanging back. So maybe deprioritizing or just not getting started on it. Maybe it just seems like overwhelming and you don't know where to start. So I think that's a mistake of just not getting started, right? And having other priorities getting in the way. Certainly there are tons of business challenges going on right now, and different things that companies deal with, but employee experience needs to be one of those things at the top, part of the people strategy that really supports the business strategy. And then I would also say, we tend to think that we can get in a room or that we know what employees want, but forgetting to involve the employees in design and testing and feedback of the experience, it's a big mistake. So, tapping it, employees are more than happy to give feedback, right? They're gonna tell you what they want if you ask them. So I think involving them or forgetting to involve them is a mistake. And definitely I recommend having those go-to employee groups that you can talk to.
Yeah, it's never too early to start, and also involving people in the process, especially in programs, initiatives, and things that they're going to impact on a day-to-day basis as well, and garnering that feedback too. I'm sure that you and your teammates, and I know I have many of these on a regular basis too, but what is one of your last learning moments? This could be literally anything.
Okay, well, I'll give you a personal one first because it's
Okay.
quick, but because I work so closely with some of my team members in Latin America, I made the kind of pronounce, outwardly that I was going to learn Spanish, get better at Spanish. And so I do have Duolingo app on my phone, and I commit to doing one lesson per day. So that's one thing I'm doing that's just more of a personal thing. But I will say, in the professional space, I did recently make a connection with our marketing team because I wanted to learn about, what they're doing in the space of design thinking. And what I found out is that we actually have a toolkit that was created by our team internally for Kimberly-Clark with, our own way of talking about it. And we've got this toolkit that was customer centric. And then, once I talked about the training and the toolkit, I immediately wanted to adapt the training and application to be employee centric. And so we're currently working together on this to build out a training for our global HR operations team, which is the team I sit on. So I'm really excited to make that connection between marketing and HR.
Design thinking is something that I am really excited to kind of discuss as well with folks. And I love both of those examples too. I'm also trying to brush up on my Spanish, so I can definitely relate there as well. Is there any advice you would give to other folks who are in employee experience, who are human resource professionals and really operators today, really looking to solve kind of today's workplace problems and make everyone's experience great as well?
I have three things. So one, I kind of mentioned earlier, but don't be overwhelmed by the number of areas you might need to work on in the employee experience realm. It can be overwhelming, and there's no team that can tackle it all at once. So you really do have to prioritize, get started, work on a piece, go to the next priority. And so, you might have to think about, what's most impactful or what's your biggest pain point, but get started on it and just keep moving forward. The second thing I would say is celebrate the wins along the way. I, at one point, was feeling, we talked about this being a continuous journey. I was feeling like, oh, we had to revisit this or we had to change something or, do something differently based on feedback as if we got it wrong the first time. And I had to remind myself we didn't get it wrong. We did, the best we could based on the information we had, right? What we knew at that time. And now we have more information, more feedback, and we can adjust and make it even better. So it's kind of just don't beat yourself up because you're having to continue. You're signing up in the employee experience space. You're really signing up for this continuous journey, and you're just going to keep making those improvements as you go forward. Um, and then the last thing I would say is don't forget to talk to employees about what they like, what they want, what they need, and they're definitely going to tell you. So those are my three things.
I think those are three things that are really important to remember and also go really hands in hand as well, as we are tackling a lot in this space too, and everything is ever changing as well, and it could be definitely overwhelming. Nicole, is there anything that I didn't specifically ask that you would like to share with folks listening or underscore any key takeaways from the many things that we discussed here today? I want to pass the mic back to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it would just be underscoring to focus on employee experience and get started on it because employee experience exists whether you're focused on it or not. Employees are having an experience, right? So you can either try to shape it or not. So shaping it using those cross-functional partnerships that I was discussing is really ideal to create a more seamless and holistic experience across a variety of, events and um, processes and tools. And I have to say, I've never heard anyone say that they regretted working together to create a better outcome. So that's just, the cross-functional partnerships and, you know, get focused on employee experience.
Get focused on it, and I love that line. It's happening whether you're focusing on it or not. People are having an experience, and it's really great to collaborate with other departments, collaborate with employees to create something really great. We're spending so much of our times working anyway. Nicole, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture this afternoon.
Thanks, Christina.
Of course, and as a reminder for folks who are listening, at AllVoices, we really believe in employees and employers being seen, heard, and understood, and know it's a requirement for the business to really succeed overall. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.